What if I told you that the most powerful woman in WWE right now, a woman who had just climbed back to the very top of the mountain, who had fought, bled, and clawed her way back into championship gold, had to walk away from it all? Not because she was beaten. Not because somebody pinned her shoulders to the mat for a 3 count. Not because she tapped out. But because of something far bigger than any championship, any rivalry, or any pay-per-view moment. Something that changed everything. Welcome back to Wrestling Impact, the channel that never lets you miss a single moment that matters. And trust me, people, today's story matters more than almost anything we've covered this year. So if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is exactly the kind of storytelling you sign up for. And if you've been riding with us, you already know. We don't do half measures. We go all in, every single time. Today we are talking about Becky Lynch, the woman who redefined what it means to be a champion in WWE, who turned "I am the man" from a catchphrase into a cultural phenomenon, who inspired millions of fans around the world, men, women, and children, to believe that no door is ever truly closed. Today we are talking about the moment she had to relinquish the Intercontinental Championship, and we are talking about why. Becky Lynch is pregnant. Let that sink in for just a second. Becky Lynch, who had just recaptured championship gold, who was carrying the Intercontinental title with a fire and a confidence that reminded every single one of us why she is one of the greatest to ever do this, had to hand the championship back, not on her terms, not in a blaze of in-ring glory, but because a new life demanded something even more important than gold. Now, before we go any further, let's set the stage. Let's take you back to how we even got here, because this story didn't begin with a handshake and a smile. It began, like all great Becky Lynch stories, with conflict, with fire, and with something to prove. Becky had returned to WWE television after her previous hiatus with the kind of energy that feels electric the moment she walks through that curtain. The crowd doesn't just react to Becky Lynch, they erupt. There is a reason she became the face of WWE, a reason her merchandise sells, a reason that when her music hits, people lose their minds. She represents something real. She represents the grind, the sacrifice, the willingness to get knocked down over and over again and still stand back up with that same grin on her face, that same fire in her eyes, and say, "Come on then, is that all you've got?" When she set her sights on the Intercontinental Championship, the wrestling world paid attention, because Becky Lynch going after a title isn't just about the belt. It's about the story. It's about the emotional investment. You don't just watch Becky Lynch win a championship, you feel it. You pump your fist. You might even tear up a little, and yes, it's okay to admit that, because that is what great wrestling does. It makes you feel something. The journey to capture that Intercontinental title was brutal. There were nights where the odds were stacked completely against her. There were moments where you genuinely didn't know if she was going to pull it off. The rivalries were intense, the matches were physical, and Becky brought every single tool in her arsenal to bear. The disarm her locked in at just the right moment. The impeccable timing. The ability to read a crowd, read her opponent, and turn momentum on a dime. Championship Becky is a different creature entirely. She operates on another level, and her opponents know it. And when she finally did it, when she finally held that Intercontinental Championship above her head and looked out at those fans screaming her name, it felt like a moment the entire roster stopped to acknowledge. Because that's what Becky Lynch moments are. They're not just highlights. They're landmarks. But behind the scenes, something was happening that none of us knew about. Something beautiful, something life-changing, something that would ultimately rewrite the entire trajectory of what came next. Becky Lynch was expecting a child. Now, when news like this surfaces in the world of professional wrestling, the conversation can go in a lot of different directions. There are logistical questions. There are championship implications. There are the fans, some of whom react with pure joy, and some of whom, let's be honest, first think about what this means for the title picture. Because wrestling fans are passionate people and the show must go on. But the heart of this story, the emotional core that everything else orbits around, is simply this: a woman who has given everything to this business, who has sacrificed her body and her time and her energy for years and years, was now stepping into the most important role of her life. The discovery of the pregnancy created an immediate situation that WWE had to navigate carefully. A reigning champion cannot compete if competing would put either their health or the health of their child at risk. That's not a storyline decision. That's a human decision. And whatever you think about the world of sports entertainment, the people involved are real, the risks are real, and the responsibility is real. When Becky Lynch relinquished the Intercontinental Championship, it wasn't done in some quiet back room with a quick handoff. This is Becky Lynch we're talking about. Even in a moment of stepping back, she did it with class. She did it with dignity. She stood in front of those cameras, and she made sure that every person watching understood the weight of what she was holding, both the championship and the moment itself. Imagine being in that arena. Imagine the hush that falls over the crowd when Becky walks out, and there's no pyro, no over-the-top entrance energy. Just her. Just the man. And the belt on her shoulder, knowing what's about to happen. The fans who follow this closely enough already sense it. You can feel it. Wrestling crowds are incredibly perceptive. They pick up on shifts in atmosphere like a living organism. And when Becky starts speaking, when she addresses what's happening, there is a moment where the arena holds its collective breath. She doesn't ask for sympathy. That's not who Becky Lynch is. She doesn't do pity. She doesn't do weakness. What she does is she looks at that championship, and she tells it and tells every person watching that she will be back. That this is not goodbye. That champions don't retire from championships, sometimes they just pause. And a woman who fought as hard as she did to get to the top of this mountain is not the kind of woman who simply disappears. For the fans, this moment carries a complicated kind of emotion. Because you're happy for her, right? You are genuinely, deeply happy that Becky Lynch is going to be a mother, that she is choosing something magnificent and irreplaceable over gold and spotlights. But you also feel that particular ache that wrestling creates better than almost any other form of entertainment, the ache of wanting more, of knowing a great story has been interrupted, of sitting with uncertainty and wondering when you'll see her back in that ring. The Intercontinental Championship itself becomes a fascinating storyline engine the moment it's vacated. Because now there is a power vacuum. Now every ambitious competitor in that locker room looks at that empty title picture and sees an opportunity. Some of them waited patiently while Becky held it because they respected the mountain. Now the mountain has no flag on it. Now the race begins. But let's not rush past the significance of what Becky's tenure meant. Because in holding the Intercontinental Championship, she wasn't just adding hardware to her legacy. She was making a statement about what that title represents. The Intercontinental Championship has a storied history in WWE. It has been held by some of the greatest names in this industry. Becky Lynch wearing that title was a chapter worth celebrating, a chapter that showed the possibilities that exist when WWE fully invests in a performer and lets their natural charisma and work ethic dictate the narrative. There will be people who say, and they are not entirely wrong, that the greatest championships Becky Lynch has ever held are not leather and gold. They are the moments. The WrestleMania main event. The double championship night. The standing ovations. The genuine, earned respect of her peers in that locker room. Because wrestling careers are not measured by the number of title reigns. They are measured by the emotional footprint left behind. And Becky Lynch's footprint is enormous. Now let's talk about something that the wrestling community has been buzzing about behind the scenes. Because when a championship becomes vacant, the immediate question isn't just who gets it next, it's how do they handle the transition in a way that honors what came before. WWE Creative faces a real challenge here. You have a championship that was held by one of the most overperformers on the roster, and you need to find a way to pass the torch or that belt, rather in a way that feels meaningful rather than hollow. The best case scenario? A tournament. A series of compelling matches that builds toward a championship coronation that itself becomes a moment. The worst case? A rushed decision that undermines the weight of the vacancy. Wrestling history has examples of both. The best organizations understand that a vacancy is not a problem, it's a story waiting to be told. And right now, that story is being written in real time. For the performers in that locker room, Becky's departure from the title picture also opens something up psychologically. When a performer of her magnitude is in the title picture, there's a certain gravity to it. Other performers align around her. Now that alignment shifts. New rivalries will form. New alliances might fracture. And somebody sitting in a locker room right now, lacing up their boots, looking at themselves in the mirror, is about to have the opportunity of a career. The moment Becky Lynch handed back that Intercontinental Championship, she unknowingly handed someone else their biggest moment. That's the circle of wrestling. That's the beautiful, relentless cycle of it. And then there's the personal side of all of this, which deserves its own moment of reflection. Becky Lynch has spoken openly and movingly over the years about her journey, about what it took to get to the level she reached, about the sacrifices made along the way, about the years of grinding on the independent circuit before WWE, about the frustrations and the setbacks and the moments of pure doubt that every performer has, whether they talk about it or not. She came from nothing. She built something extraordinary. And now she is adding the most meaningful chapter yet. Wrestling fans, real wrestling fans, The kind who bleed for this business understand that the people in that ring are more than characters. They are human beings with lives and families and dreams that extend beyond the squared circle. Cheering for Becky Lynch at her absolute wrestling peak is incredible. But cheering for Becky Lynch, the person navigating one of life's most profound transitions with the same courage and transparency that has always defined her public presence? That hits differently. That means something. The wrestling world will wait for her. The fans will wait. The championship gold will be there when she comes back, because Becky Lynch always comes back. And when she does, when that music hits again on some future Raw or pay-per-view night after this chapter has passed, that crowd is going to shake the building. Because absence creates hunger, and hunger creates moments, and moments are what this entire industry runs on. Picture it. Months from now, the lights go down, and then that familiar sound. And 60,000 people or 20,000 people, or however many are in that building, all lose their minds simultaneously. Because she's back. The man is back. And whoever is holding gold at that point had better be ready, because Becky Lynch returning from a hiatus is not a warning. It's a countdown. That is the story we are living right now. That is the narrative that Wrestling Impact wants you to hold on to. Not just the headline, not just Becky Lynch relinquishes title due to pregnancy, but the full, rich, emotional, cinematic story underneath it. The history, the sacrifice, the love for this business, the love for the new life on the way, the promise of a return that will be remembered. This is what wrestling is at its very best. It is not just athletic performance. It is not just scripted competition. At its best, wrestling is a reflection of real human experience, triumph and loss, presence and absence, letting go and coming back stronger than ever. And right now, in this moment, Becky Lynch is living all of that at once. To Becky Lynch, the man, the champion, the future mother, the inspiration from every single person in this community, thank you. Thank you for giving everything you had to that ring. Thank you for making us believe that anything is possible. And we'll see you when you get back. To every person watching this right now, if this story moved you, if this script captured even a fraction of what makes wrestling special, then do us a favor. Drop a comment below and tell us what your favorite Becky Lynch moment is. The one that made you feel something real. The one you still think about. Because this community is built on exactly those conversations. Hit that like button if you are riding with Becky Lynch through every chapter of her story. And if you haven't subscribed to Wrestling Impact yet, why are you waiting? This is where the real wrestling stories live. Subscribe, hit that bell, and we will see you in the next one. The man will be back. Count on it.